Tuell is with us, head basketball coach here at Nova Southeastern University. You're 2-3.
Right.
But it's kind of a misleading 2-3. I know you got some big games coming up. You're playing pretty darn well.
Yeah, we played West Georgia Tuesday night up at West Georgia in Carrollton, Georgia, which is a nice little town. I think they started to build a city there about 1930, and everybody got tired after 2 weeks, went to bed, and never woke up. But their basketball team's good, and they're 7-0. They're number one in our region, and they've beaten the preseason favorite from the Peach Belt Conference. They've beaten the preseason favorite from the Southern Intercollegiate or Interscholastic Athletic Conference. All of which means nothing to anybody here, but they're a very good team. They're 7-0 and they're good. So playing up there was a good test for us. I thought we battled hard. I thought we were competitive. We had a bad 6-minute stretch at the end of the first half where we fell behind by 10, and then we had to try to dig ourselves out of it in the second half. And I told our guys, basically at halftime, we can go one of two ways. We can let this get away from us, or we can fight, and we're going to find out, what we're made of and what kind of team we have. And our guys really accepted the challenge, battled the entire second half. I thought we outplayed West Georgia the last 20 minutes and probably the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game. Tony, we got it down to 3 points. We had a one-possession game with them in the last minute and a half, and I couldn't be happier for us. We didn't shoot it well. We were 4 for 22 on threes, and it got so bad our guys were high-fiving each other if they shot a three and hit the rim. It was one of those nights when we couldn't make anything. But we played hard, and I saw signs in the second half of this team coming together and being a team for the first time this year.
Yeah, that was my next question. You led me right into it. You said you always like to wait 5 games at least, or 6 games, to decide what kind of team you have. Well, you've had that moment. Give me a sense. What's the personality of this team?
It continues to evolve with the growth of Tim Traversa at point guard. Timmy's a junior from Chicago, tough kid, tremendously talented. I had a friend, Bill Banks, who's a writer in Atlanta, had at one time played basketball at the University of Louisville. And Bill called and said, "I want to come over and see the game." I said, "Great, come over to West Georgia. It's a short drive for him." And I put him on a bench, let him sit on the bench with us, and he really enjoyed that. But he really enjoyed watching Tim play, and after the game he said, "I love Traversa. He's going to be a special player for you. You've got to put up with his mistakes right now, because in the long run it's going to pay off." And I think he's exactly right. Timmy's 6'3" and 225, looks like an NFL linebacker. He comes from a real tough area in Chicago. When I went up to visit him, I couldn't believe the neighborhood I drove through to find his house, and I asked his family if it was tough living there, and they said, "Well, crime's down." And I said, "That's because you've got no more victims. I mean, you've killed them all up here probably, but it's a tough spot where he grew up, and he's a tough kid." He lacks discipline. He played in a junior college system where I don't think he had a lot of discipline, and we're trying to teach him how to run a team, and that's a tough thing for a point guard when you don't have a lot of discipline or you're not used to that. But he has been so coachable and so pliable, and has given us everything we've asked from him, and we're so proud of the way he's developed. And I think we'll be as good as he probably lets us be. The other big Chicago kid.
That talented.
Yeah, he's really that good. He was recruited by Davidson in several Division I's, coming out of high school, and didn't have the grades and had to go to junior college. And I followed him from high school all the way through junior college, and just kind of stayed with him, and we were lucky to get him.
When you talk about mistakes that you have to go through with a young player, give me an example.
Well, Tim's got a bad habit. First of all, defense is something that that's a foreign language to him. So, we've had to really emphasize that with him, and he's worked very, very hard to improve his defense, and we've seen a lot of growth in his game in that area. But he has bad habits. He probably, Tony, is the best passer that I've ever coached at any level, at Louisville, Miami, anywhere. He has a great sense for passing the basketball, and he loves to pass it. The problem he gets himself into is he throws the ball one-handed too many times, and sometimes he's got enormous hands, but he gets the ball out away from his body to pass it with one hand, and if there's a defender in the passing lane and he's committed to that pass, he can't bring the ball back. So trying to get him to put two hands on the ball and not one. He leaves his feet to pass, and you know as well as I do, when you get up in the air, you can't come down with it. You've got to do something, and sometimes he gets himself in trouble there. He's at the point now, though, when he makes those mistakes, he knows it. We don't have to correct him. He looks at us and points at himself, and he knows he made that mistake. So.
And you know you know that a player is growing, regardless of what sport, whether it's basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball, whatever. You know that a player is growing when he or she can correct their own mistake in the middle of the battle.
Right, that's right, and he can do that. He's one of the most talented players we've had here. He's kind of fun to coach, and you know, probably some of the confusion we have is, one, where to play him, and two, what to do with him when we put him there, because he has such unique talents, and he has such tremendous size for a point guard, that we experiment a lot with him, and we play around as coaches with different ideas for how to use him. And so we're still growing as a staff and trying to figure out the best way to utilize Timmy's talent.
Well, your game against Barry is going to be right here on 6:40 a.m. this afternoon at 4 o'clock. You know, we bill it as the local rivalry, NSU against Barry. Do the players see it the same way?
Well, you know, the local kids do. You know, the local kids are friends with Barry's local kids, and they text each other, and there's some rivalry there. But, you know, we've got so many out-of-state guys, and so does Barry this year, that I don't think you have that same sense of rivalry that we have in the past. And I think it's more of a rivalry, to be honest with you, in every other sport but men's basketball, because Barry's coach, Cesar Odio, and I have been friends for, we were both assistant coaches at the University of Miami. I have enormous respect for Cesar, not only as a coach, but as a man. And we're just about as close as two guys can be. So neither one of us really enjoy the game. We don't enjoy, you know, the competition against each other. So for us, we don't play up the rivalry part of it the way I think some of the other coaches do between Nova and Barry. Caesar and I just let the game happen. Try to enjoy each other.
What is the schedule now for your team in terms of holiday, and in terms of practice schedule and allowing them to spend holiday with the family? How does that work?
Well, after the Barry game today, we're in finals all next week, and then at the end of the week we have to play Eckerd up at Eckerd. So that's going to be a tough one, because we're going to obviously be concentrating on final exams. We will practice when the kids are available during the week, but we won't be on our normal 2:30 to 5 o'clock schedule. It will depend on their exams. And then once we get through the Eckerd game on December 10th, we play the College of the Bahamas on the 15th, and we play in the Cruising Classic. We have West Georgia actually coming back here to play on December 17th, and then I believe we play Keene State on the 19th. And then on the 20th, our guys are off until the 26th. During that stretch from the 10th to the 19th, we'll probably practice in the morning, watch film in the afternoon, and that'll be our daily schedule with our guys.
Let me ask you about Leanne Freeland and what she's been able to do, talking basketball, with the women's program, and how that impacts, how it impacts in a positive way what the men are doing.
Well, I think Leanne she's very enthusiastic and energetic, and I have a lot of respect for her as a coach. I'm thrilled that she's here, and she's fun to be with, she's fun to coach with, and she's a great person to bounce ideas off of. She loves to learn, she loves the game, so I've enjoyed her. It's great to see the intensity in the women's program, and great to see that the way she has instilled the discipline in her program. And I think that when our guys see that, we can sometimes hold the ladies up as an example for our guys. And I think they're proud. I think both the men's and women's teams are proud of each other and pull for each other and like to see each other win.
Yeah, there has to be this relationship, because they're both playing the same sport, and they're both appreciative of what it takes to play that sport, and applauding the successes.
That's true, and they also play together. You know, sometimes in the off season, you'll find the guys and girls out there on the floor playing together, and we travel sometimes together. So very large sense, the men's and women's basketball teams are more family probably than most other sports.
Not only Leanne, has she been an addition for the women's side, but you have a new assistant coach as well.
I do. Brandon Crone, who's from Frankfort, Indiana, right outside of Indianapolis. Brandon was the captain of the Butler University team that went to the Sweet 16 and lost to the Florida team that won the national championship in 2007. Brandon had a great career at Butler, and after he graduated from Butler, he went to Europe and played overseas for 3 years professionally. And you know, when I was looking for an assistant to replace Lou Gurrieras, I was interested in somebody who was young, enthusiastic, and who had been part of a winning program. And I called some guys at Butler that I knew and asked if they had any young graduates that might fit that bill, and they recommended Brandon. We met once, and I loved him. And, it's interesting, I made a recruiting trip originally to see Tim Traverse in Chicago, and the day before I went there, I found out about Sean Prattle, and so I had an opportunity to visit Sean. And that day that I left for Chicago to visit Tim and Sean, I found out about Brandon Crone, made a phone call to him, and we met up at a Cubs game in Chicago. So that same weekend, so
That was
a great weekend.
That was a great weekend
for Nova
for you.
Southeastern's basketball team.
Well, it's always great to have you here on Sharp Sports Rack. We thank you so much. Good luck this afternoon against Barry, and we'll be talking to you again next week.
Thanks a lot. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Gary Tuell, head basketball coach at Nova Southeastern.